Tamaham Vande Shri Gurudeen Taranam Paramanandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna. So we were discussing in the 19th chapter of the third canto the battle between Lord Vara and Hirnaksha. And the sequence is quite straightforward. That Hirnaksh, he met Varun, challenging him to battle, insulting him, and Varun refused to fight with him, knowing that Hirnaksh was beyond his prowess, and he directs him to Vishnu. So, with the directions given by Narad Muni, Hirnaksh, he reaches the place where Lord Varadev is rescuing Bhumi Devi, and he challenges him. So Varadev initially ignores him, and Hirnaksh gets upset about it. But then he places Bhumi Devi back in the orbit, and then there is a brief battle of words between the two personalities, and then there is a combat. While the combat is happening, Lord Brahma, he comes and he requests Lord Vara to not play with the demon anymore, because the twilight hour was approaching when the demons would become more powerful. And Lord Vara responds with a merciful smile and continues with the battle. And in the battle, we see there are apparent reverses. Hirnaksh, first he drives the club out of the hand of Lord Vara, and then Lord Vara does the same. And then Hirnakshi throws a spear, and the spear is cut by the Sudarshan Chakra. So they've reached a point where they're both have divested themselves of their weapons. And the battle is reaching its final stages of hand-to-hand combat. So we will resume from verse 23. Tadadete sambhavat sahasa hridi veputu smarantya bharaturadesham satnachashka parushruve. At that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hirnaksh. She recalled the words of her husband, Kashyap, and blood flowed from her breasts. So we see Diti having this premonition of the. So we see Diti having the premonition of the impeding death of her son. And in addition to the premonition, she's also displaying the manifest symptoms of inauspiciousness. So if you remember, when Diti and Kashyap had united, after that Kashyap had told her that her son would be Asuric, and then he would be killed by Lord Vishnu. So Diti is remembering that. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he writes that a mother's milk is actually a transformation of her blood. So in a way, there is no difference between the two. But consuming the milk is in the mode of goodness, is recommended, but not so for the blood. Prabhupada said, in the case of the demon's mother, the blood could not transform into milk, but it flowed down her breast as it was. And then Prabhupada says that this formula is applicable to cow's milk also. So he's using this to make a point that those who drink the blood of cow are demoniac. So those who eat cow's meat, they are demoniac. They should not argue that milk is a transformation of blood. So if you take milk and we take the blood, it's the same. So even though Diti was happy when Kashyap had told her that her son would be killed by Lord Vishnu, but we see that maternal affection is very strong. So philosophically, she was happy that her son would be liberated by being killed by the hands of the Lord. But as a mother, she has strong affection for her son, and that is manifesting. Verse 24. Vinashtasu swayamayasu bhuyascha vrajya keshavam rushopagu hamanomam dadrase vashtitam bahi. When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead Keshav, and full of rage, tried to embrace him within his arms to crush him. But to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. So the battle had come to a stage where Hirnaksh had realized that everything that he has in terms of the weapons that he used, the mystic powers that he was using, the power of illusion that he was applying, all that was failing. So he is now, so to speak, back to the basic, that with his own bare arms, he wants to kill the Lord. So he comes before him and he tries to embrace him. And so wrestlers who have a lot of body strength, they do that they can hold, it's called a bear's hug, that they hold the person and they squeeze their arms so tightly that they crush the other person's body. In Mahabharat, Dhritarashtra tried to do that to Bhim. After the end of the battle, he was so angry that Bhim had killed all his 100 sons, that pretending to want to embrace Bhim, he had called him, and Dhritarashtra had enormous body strength. But then Bhim, Krishna had foreseen that. So there was an iron statue of Bhim, and that was put forward, and Dhritarashtra with his arms, he crushed it to powder. So we see that Hirnaksh is trying to do the same. And then Prabhupada writes that it's not possible to capture the arm, to capture the Lord with your physical prowess. So Yashoda was able to capture the Lord, but because of her love. But one cannot capture the Lord by the basis of yogic powers, by the basis of knowledge. We see Kalya, when he tried to catch up with him, as much he could run, the Lord was running a little faster. So similarly, we see here Hirnaksh being bewildered by the Achintya Shakti of the Lord. So Prabhupada says, by this inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. So this is chapter 11, of course. And at the same time, he can remain within the box of his devotees as their worshipable deity. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. So Prabhupada makes a very sweet statement over here that it's the same Lord who is the universal form. It's the same Lord who is existing in Vaikuntha and Golok, who assumes the form of a statue and agrees to be captured in a small form we put into a box just to reciprocate with his devotees. That is his Achintya Shakti. Verse 25. Kamustibir vinignantam vrajashari radhoksajaha karena karnamuleham yatha tvastram marutpati. The demon now began to strike the Lord with his hard fists. But Lord Adhoksaj slapped him in the root of the ear, even as Indra, the lord of the Maruts, hit the demon Vrita. Prabhupada says that Krishna is called Adhoksaj over here because Adhoksaj means that one who is beyond the measurement of the senses. Aksaj means something that can be empirically measured. And Adhoksaj is beyond that. Also, we see the analogy that is given over here is just as Indra, the lord of the Maruts, hit the demon Vrita. So Indra is described as Marutpati, the lord of the Maruts. Now, the 49 Maruts, they were also sons of Diti, but they are considered to be demigods. And Indra was very, very favorable to them. He gave them important posts. And the reason was that even though Diti had initially thought of conceiving the sons to kill Indra, so this was after the pastime of Bali Maharaj, when Diti was upset at Indra stealing the kingdom from Bali. She performed a yajna and performed austerities to conceive sons who could defeat Indra. There was some truti because of which the yajna phal was not what she wanted. But it is also said that because everything that Diti did was according to the scriptures, the conceiving of the children and her consciousness while they were in the womb, the children were born who were very, very pious, favorable to the devas. Now, on the other hand, Hirnaksh was conceived out of lust, and that is why his mentality till the end remains inimical to the Lord. Verse 26. Sa ahat vishvajit hayavagya paribrahmat katrudastalochana vishnabhavangari siro rupata yatha nagendrululetulabhasvata. Though struck indifferently by the Lord, the conqueror of all, the demon's body began to wheel. His eyeballs bulged out of their sockets, his arms and legs broken, and the hair on his head scattered. He fell down dead, like a gigantic tree uprooted by the wind. So we see the Lord displaying a fraction of his real power. And this is done to show that all this battle, etc., was simply a pastime that the Lord was enjoying. Because the previous verse says that indifferently. So not with a lot of exertion and not with a lot of concentration. The Lord almost casually, almost without even paying attention to it, he killed Hirnaksh. And that also not with a weapon. He simply struck him with his hand. Prabhupada says simply by one slap, the demon was killed. So factually, no one is a match to the Lord. When these pastimes happen, in which we see that there is to and fro, and apparently reversals in the battle, then we have to understand that this is all Krishna being Leelananda. One of Krishna's name is Leelananda, that he takes pleasure in his pastimes. And then he does it for the pleasure of his devotees also. He puts on a good show. There is some anxiety on the part of the devotees. There is some relief. There is glorification, awe. So he does that for both purposes. Verse 27. Shitau shayanam tamakuntavarchasam karalidamastram paridastadachadam ajatyu shashamshuragata aho imam ko nulabheta samstitam. Aja, Brahma, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tusked demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded. And Brahma admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such blessed death?" So in 6 verses, from 27 to 32, we will see Brahma and the others praise Hirnaksh and for Lord Varadev, of course. So important to note here that even though Hirnaksh was killed, his effulgence was still unfaded. And generally speaking, when a person dies, the body loses all effulgence. The body becomes lusterless, decomposition begins to happen. But in Hirnaksh's case, that did not happen. And Prabhupada explains that although the demon's soul had departed the body, the effulgence was there because his body had been touched by Lord Vara. So he says, one who sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when he quits his body, is certainly very fortunate. And therefore, personalities like Brahma and the other demigods eulogize the death of the demon. And later on, he'll say that so fortunate that he was able to touch the Lord. While dying, he was seeing the Lord. And because the Lord had touched his body, the body was glowing with effulgence. Verse 28. Yam yogino yoga samadhinaraho dhyayanti lingad asato mumukshaya tasesha daitya rishabhi padato mukham prapashyam stanumut sarajha. Brahma continued. He was struck by the forefoot of the Lord, whom yogis, seeking freedom from their unreal material bodies, meditate upon in seclusion, in mystic trance. While gazing on his countenance, this crest jewel of Diti's son has cast off his mortal coil. So in this verse, it is said that the demon was struck by the forefoot of the Lord. And in verse 25, it is mentioned that the demon was slapped by the Lord. And Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the two front feet of the boar are also his hands. So there is no contradiction over here. Prabhupada comments upon the glories of associating with the Lord, and specifically the good fortune of Hirnaksha. So Brahma mentions that Yam, unto him, there are yogis who meditate unto the Lord. He says that even if one concentrates his mind on the boar form of the Lord, that is also yoga. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, one who concentrates his mind constantly in meditation upon the personality of the Godhead in one of his many varieties of forms is called a first-class yogi. So this is Bhagavad Gita. This was mentioned in chapter 8, verses 8 and 9. And then Prabhupada says that he can very easily attain trance by meditating upon the form of the Lord. So this is essentially Yoga Mishra Bhakti, because the person is meditating on the Lord, whether it is Vara or Krishna or Lord Vishnu, but he's performing devotional service. The means that he is using to perform the service is yoga. Because of the person's propensity or proclivity towards yoga, he's attracted to yoga, but he's using yoga to meditate on the Lord. So Brahma mentions that such a person is in the maturity is able to keep the form of the Lord in the mind when dying. And Hirnaksh had the same good fortune, that without any effort on his side, he could keep the form of the Lord in his mind at the time he died. But in his case, he did not aspire to keep it. It happened by the mercy of the Lord. But Brahma is appreciating the fact that this is the destination that advanced yogis seek. Verse 29. Itau tau parasad Itau tau parasadavasya Shapadyata vasadgatim Punakati pahistanam Prapatsete ha janmabhi. These two personal assistants of the Supreme Lord, having been cursed, have been destined to take birth in demoniac families. After a few such births, they will return to their own positions. We see a change in the mood of Lord Brahma. So earlier on, when he was encouraging the Lord to kill Hirnaksh, at that time he was strongly criticizing Hirnaksh and talking about all his bad qualities. Now that he has died, Lord Brahma is taking a step back and looking at it from a more philosophical perspective. So he's aware of the real identity of Hirnaksh and Hiranyakashipu. He knows that they are Jaya Vijay, the pastime of them being cursed by the four Kumars. So this is his glorification of them. That Hirnaksh may have acted like a demon, but he was actually he says that Parshad. So Parshad means that somebody who is a very, very intimate assistant, personal assistant, Prabhupada translates. Parshad means that almost one considers like his own body. So he's glorifying their real possessions. Does not want to commit any Vaishnava apradha. Verse 30. Deva uchuhu namo namaste khila tantave sitau grihatam situ grihatamal satvamurte dishtya jagatam aruntudas tvatpad bhaktya vayamisha nirvataha. The demigods address the Lord. All obeisances unto you. You are the enjoyer of all sacrifices. And you assume the form of a boar in pure goodness for the purpose of maintaining the world. Fortunately for us, this demon, who was a torment to the worlds, has been slain by you. And we too, O Lord, are now at ease in devotion to your lotus feet. So Prabhupada indicates that this prayer of the demigods indicates their saintliness. That while they were tormented by Hirnaksh, the real reason that they were tormented was that it was an impediment to their being able to render service to the personality of Godhead. And that is why they were agitated. So now they're expressing their gratitude to the Lord that this impediment to their bhakti has been removed. So Prabhupada says that purified life is meant to please the Lord. And all sacrifices performed in purified life are called Krishna consciousness. This Krishna consciousness is developed by devotional service, as clearly mentioned here. Okay, so we'll do one more verse and then after that we can pause for any discussion. Verse 31. Maitreya vacha evam hiranyaksham ashaya vikramam sasadhyatva hariradishukaraha jagamalokam swam akhanditotsavanam samedita puskar vistradibihi. Sri Maitreya continued, after thus killing the most formidable demon Hirnaksh, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, returned to his own abode, where there is always an uninterrupted festival. The Lord was praised by all the demigods, headed by Brahma. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the Lord is spoken of herewith as the origin of the boar species. As stated in the Vedanta Sutra, the absolute truth is the origin of everything. So this is actually the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.2, Janmadiyasya Yata. So this is also that which is supposed to be expanded by the Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam also starts with Janmadhyasya. So that sutra states that the absolute truth is the origin of everything. So Prabhupada says that one can understand that the 8.4 million species of bodily forms originate from the Lord. He said in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna addresses the Lord as Adyam Purana Purusham. So this is in the 11th chapter, verse 31. And then Prabhupada says that in Brahma Samhita, the Lord is addressed as Adi Purusham. This is Govindam Adi Purusham. And again, Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord declares himself, Matata Sarvam Pravartate. From me, everything proceeds. This is the first of the Chaturshloki, 10.8. So one reason Prabhupada is going at lengths to make this point is to forestall silly opinions that people might say that why is only the boar species originating from the Lord? That he is being called Adi Sukram over here. So only the boar species is coming, so we can understand that the other species are not coming. And Prabhupada is making this point that yes, he is Adi Sukram, and it resonates in this pastime also. But he is also the origin of all other species. And Prabhupada gives 4 Vedic references over here. He quotes from Vedanta Sutra, he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, he quotes from Brahma Samhita, and then he quotes from the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is the source of anything. Because invariably, somebody will ask this question. That what about this statement that the Lord is the origin of the boar? So does he have a particular affinity to the species of life? The Prabhupada further explains that he assumed the shape of a boar to kill the demon and pick the ocean. So he is called Adi Sukar. In the material world, a boar or a pig is considered most abominable, but the Adi Sukar, the personality of Godhead, was not treated as an ordinary boar. Even Lord Brahma and other demigods praise the Lord's form as a boar. So one should not get bewildered by these things. That because the Lord has a form of a boar, and then there is certain negative connotations to the boar in the material world, one should not get bewildered by these. People who are weak in the Tattva Gyan, they will get bewildered by this, and Prabhupada is trying to protect there. So he's saying he assumed the shape of a boar. Does not mean that he became a pig, and it does not mean that the species of pig is a direct descendant of Krishna. I mean, it of course means that it is, but all species are aham bijpada vipita. All species are coming from Krishna. So Prabhupada further says that this verse confirms the statement in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears as he is from his transcendental abode for the sake of killing the miscreants and saving the devotees. So this Prabhupada, of course, is quoting the famous Abhyuktanam Dharmasya Tadatmanam Srijamyam 4.7 and 8. So he says that by killing the demon Hirnaksh, he fulfilled his promise to kill the demon and always protect the demigods headed by Brahma. The statement that the Lord returned to his own abode indicates that he has his own transcendental residence. Since he is full of all energies, he is all pervasive in spite of his residing in Golok Vrindavan. Just as the sun, although situated in a particular place within the universe, is present by its sunshine, throughout the universe. Okay, so let me pause here, see if we have any comments. Okay, if not, we'll continue with verse 32. Maya yathanuktam avadite hare krita avatarasya sumitra chestitam yatha hiranya udar vikramo mahamradhe kril danavan nirakritaha. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidur, I have explained to you the personality of Godhead's coming down as the first boar incarnation and killing in a great fight a demon of unprecedented prowess, as if he were just a plaything. This has been narrated by me as I heard it from my predecessor, spiritual master. So Maitreya uses the word yatha anuktam. So yatha anuktam means that I am telling you what I heard from my guru, but I have not gone beyond that. So this is doing two things. At one place, it is establishing this as bona fide because it is coming from the disciplic succession and it has not been contorted. So he's saying that yatha anuktam. This is how I was told, and this is what I have spoken to you. So uktam means that what my guru has said, and anu means following that avadi, I have spoken to you. Also, Maitreya has mentioned more than once of the Lord being Achintya and Adhoksaja. So he's saying, this is what I have been told, this is what I know, this is what I've told you. Now, there are many things that I cannot tell. Why did the Lord use a boar form? Why didn't he not take the form of some other? Why did he not take some other form? Why did the Lord have to fight with Hiranyaksh for such a long time and then casually kill him? Why did the Lord personally have to come and kill him? Why can't anyone else have come to kill him? So he's saying there are many aspects of the Lord that are inconceivable because the Lord is beyond our senses. So I'm telling you what I heard, and his recommendation to Vidur and of course to all of us is to accept these pastimes in that spirit. Yatha anuktam. As the Guru has said, one accepts it and one only speaks what has been spoken by the Guru. So Prabhupada says that Maitreya is saying that this is a straight narration, that I have not manufactured anything, nor have I added any interpretation. So in effect, he is taking shelter of the parampara. Prabhupada says, unless received by this bona fide process of hearing from a spiritual master, the statement of an acharya or preceptor cannot be valid. It's an important statement Prabhupada makes. Verse 33. Sutta uvacha iti koshravya khatam ashrutya bhagavat katham shatanandam param lebhe Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sri Sutta Goswami continued. My dear Brahman, Kshata, Vidur, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kausharva, Maitreya, and he was very pleased. So in 4 verses, from 33 to 36, the glories of the Lord are described. So Sutta Goswami, as we know, is speaking to the sages at Naimisharan. So he addresses them as Dvija. And so Brahmins are typically called Dvijas because they take one seminal birth and they take the second birth at the time of Upnayanam, when they are accepted by a spiritual master as the son. So Prabhupada says that the sages were all Brahmanas. But just being twice born is not perfection. Perfection is attained when one hears the pastimes of the and activities of the Lord from a bona fide source. So Prabhupada in his purport, he glorifies the potency of Krishna Katha. That even though the sages were Dvijas, but the real glory is that they are participating in Krishna Katha. And what's the glory of Krishna Katha? Prabhupada says that if it is heard from an authoritative source, with the ear and the heart, one can relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. So this is Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya. Prabhupada is quoting first canto, second chapter. Then he says, Sanatana Goswami has specially warned that one should not hear anything about the personality of the Lord from the lips of a non-devotee. So just as hearing the pastimes from a bona fide source is glorified, hearing it from a non-devotee is condemned. So when something is very potent, if it is used properly, it is immensely beneficial. And when it is used improperly, it is equally harmful. So we know the potency of Vaishnava Sangha. Very, very potent in making devotional advancements. But when Vaishnava Sangha becomes Vaishnava Aparadh, then it is the Mathati Aparadh. It's the mad elephant offense that uproots the creeper of bhakti. Nothing else can uproot. Similarly, Krishna Katha. And Prabhupada, he warns that one should not hear this from Mayavadis, one should not hear this from professional reciters. And he quotes the authority of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says that Mayavadi bhas shunya haya sarvanash. So Mayavadi bhasya, that one who hears the Mayavadi's interpretation of the pastimes. So these pastimes have a lot of interpretation by Mayavadis, where they attribute symbolism, or they say that this is a metaphor, or it was not really the Lord, but this represents this, etc. Just to negate the personal feature of the Lord. And that is very, very dangerous. Mahaprabhu says that sarvanash. Mayavadi bhasya shunile, haya sarvanash. Everything is destroyed. And the other are non-devotees. They may not be impersonalists, but they have no affection for the Lord. they're doing it either to get fame or to get money or followers. And since they don't have any regard for the Lord in their heart, then whatever they are speaking is simply going to carry their contaminated consciousness. Okay, next verse, 34. Anayesham punyashlokanam udam yashasham satam upshrutya bhaven moda Srivad Sankhya Kim Punaha. What to speak of hearing the pastimes of the Lord, whose chest is marked with Shrivats? People may take transcendental pleasure even in hearing of the works and deeds of the devotees, whose fame is immortal. So, Anayesham Punya Shlokanam. So Punya Shlokanam means one whose piety is glorified. Prabhupada translates this to refer to the personality of Godhead, Punya Shlokanam. Vishwanath Chakravarti, interestingly, he translates this to refer to Maharaj Yudhishthira. So one of Yudhishthira's name was Punya Shlok. And in that context, the verse reads as that when one attains such bliss on hearing the pastimes of the famous devotees such as Yudhishthira, how much more bliss one will derive from the pastimes of the Lord marked with the Shivats. So more of a technical difference. The essence of the verse is that hearing the pastimes of the Lord is purifying. Hearing the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord is also purifying. And we'll see that Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it says Bhagavatam, that this is about the personality of Godhead, but it is full of pastimes of the devotees of the personality of God. So in the later cantos, we'll see the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Ambrish Maharaj. But they're equally potent. And they are equally relishable. Okay, next verse. Verse 35. Yogajendram jashagrastam dhyayantam charanambujam kroshantinam karenunam krachratto machayudrutam. The personality of Godhead delivered the king of the elephants, who was attacked by an alligator and who meditated upon the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, the female elephants who accompanied him were crying, and the Lord saved them from the impending danger. So this verse talks about Gajendra Moksha that comes later on in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam. So, and the reason Maitreya speaks it over here is to glorify the mercy of the Lord. That in this pastime, he came drawn by the prayers of Brahma and the Devas. Brahma is the most exalted being in the universe. And drawn by the prayers of the Devas and the Brahma and Lord Brahma, the Lord came and rescued them. But this is not to say that the Lord's attention and affection are exclusive. Prabhupada says that the example of the elephant in danger was given because even if one is an animal, he can approach the personality of Godhead in devotional service. Whereas even a demigod cannot approach the Supreme Person unless he is a devotee. the verse is essentially glorifying the potency of bhakti. That the reason Lord came to rescue Brahma and the Devas was because he was attracted by the devotion. For him, the fact that they were exalted personalities, the fact that they were extremely pious, not very relevant. And how can we see that? That when an elephant called the Lord simply by offering a flower, the Lord came equally promptly to help him and rescue him from the danger. So that is the attraction of the Lord to the process of devotion. Tam sukhradyam rijubhi ananya sharanir nibhi kritagya ko nasveta duraradhyam asadubhi. What grateful soul is there who would not render his loving service to such a great master as the personality of Godhead? The Lord can be easily pleased by spotless devotees who resort exclusively to him for protection, though the unrighteous man finds it difficult to propitiate him. So this verse is an expansion of the tattva that was stated in the previous verse indirectly, but here it is saying it directly. That the Lord is so merciful that regardless of the material qualification of the supplicant, all the way from Brahma to an elephant, he is equally ready to reciprocate and protect when he is approached by bhakti. So the Devas say that who would not, I'm sorry, this is not the Devas were speaking. This is Sutta Goswami speaking, sorry. So Sutta Goswami is making this point that, that who will not render loving service to such a magnanimous master? And then he's also talking about the potency of bhakti, that at one point it can make the most apparently unqualified person qualified, but the lack of it can make the most apparently qualified person unqualified. So regardless of whatever material prowess the person has, Hinaksh was an example of that. But because he did not have bhakti, he could not approach the Lord. And Prabhupada in the verse, he expands on the Ishavasya principle of the Ishopanishad, that everybody should feel grateful for the benedictions offered by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So one might think that Gajendra, he saw the Lord coming to rescue him. Brahma and the Devas, the Lord personally came. It does not happen in our case. We don't see the Lord coming to rescue us. So why should we feel grateful? And factually speaking, the very fact that we are existing is a benediction of the Lord. The fact that the sun rises, the winds blows, the moon rises, the plants are nourished, we have air to breathe. All of that is a continuous benediction of the Lord. In case of Gajendra and Hirnaksh, the Lord came, did his pastime and went away. But in our case, the benedictions are continuous. Every moment as Paramatma, he is supporting us. So Prabhupada says that ungrateful persons are those who do not understand how much benefit they are deriving by the arrangement of the Lord. They enjoy the sunshine and moonshine. They get water free of charge. Yet they do not feel grateful, but simply go on enjoying these gifts of the Lord. Therefore, they must be called thieves and rogues. So 2 more verses, and that will take us to the end of the chapter. Yuvairnashvadam mahadbhutam vikritam karan sukaratmanah shunoti gayatya anumodati anjasa vimuchyate brahma vadahadapi dvijaha. O Brahmans, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hirnaksh demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahman. So these last 2 verses, they are falstutis. They are giving the benefits and benediction of hearing this pastime of the Lord. So, and the way the first stuti has been written is that it is encouraging even one with material desires to listen to Krishna Katha. So it says that sinful activities that might accrue because of the killing of a Brahman, Brahmatya, and the symptom of this sinful activity is material suffering. So the verse is making the point that if somebody is in a lot of material distress, then this will relieve them of that distress. The devotees, they don't really need these falstutis because by nature they are attracted. It's their intrinsic nature. They're attracted to Krishna Katha. That's how they became devotees in the first place. In the earlier part of the Bhagavatam, that point is made many times. That through Krishna Katha, one develops devotion. So they don't need these pralobans. They don't need these falstutis. For them, the pastime is the highest praloban. Just the nectar of their pastime is enough. But yet we see, because the Lord wants to attract everybody, so he puts these falstutis, and attracted by this, even people with material desires listen to the pastime. And because it is devotional service, even though it may be a gyat, but the process purifies them. Srila Prabhupada mentions that why is the pastime so potent? And he says that because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his pastime and his personality. So anybody who is associating with the pastime is associating with the Lord. And because the Lord is all purifying, that association, it purifies them of even the most virulent kind of sinful acts like Brahmahatya. And then he concludes the purport with the same admonishment that we should only hear from devotees. We should not hear from Mayavadis. And the reason Prabhupada is stressing this over here a few times is because the more philosophical part of the Bhagavatam does not come in typical narrations. You won't see when Bhagavad Sapta is done by professional reciters, they will not speak of the first 3 chapters of the first canto. They won't speak of the 5th or the 10th chapter of the second canto, or the 26th chapter of the third canto. These are very, very philosophical chapters. They will speak about Rasa Leela, Gajendra Moksha, Varadev, and the pastimes are there, so they're potent. But uh, uh, they because they are spoken so plentifully, Srila Prabhupada is cautioning us, because he knows that when we go out in the world, we will actually, hopefully not us, but a lot of people will actually interact with the Bhagavatam through these pastimes. People sitting and talking about the pastime of Hiranyaksh, Hiranyakashipu. So he's cautioning that again and again, make sure that it is coming from a bona fide source. Okay, last verse. Etan mahapunyam alam pavitram dhanyam yashasyam padamayurashisham prajendriyanam yudhishoryavardhanam narayano ante gatirangashanvatam. The most sacred narrative confers extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and all the object of one's desire. On the field of battle, it promotes the strength of one's vital organs and organs of action. One who listens to it at the last moment of his life is transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord, O dear Shaunak. So this verse again is very masterfully constructed, that it speaks to the devotees and also to those who are materially inclined but pious. So if one is attracted to things like wealth and fame and a long life and ichhapurti, then listen to this pastime. Now, as far as the devotees is concerned, their wealth is Krishna prema. Their longevity is the process of bhakti. Their fame is the service to the Lord. The object of the desire is to serve the devotees. The battle that they're fighting is with their mind and with Maya. So it encourages both. Encourages those who are so one should not read this Falstuti and say, well, this is for people who are looking for wealth and fame and longevity, etc. I'm looking more for Krishna prema. So looking for Krishna prema, you hear this pastime, and as Prabhupada said, there's no difference between the Lord's form and his pastime. And for a devotee, there is nothing better than associating with the Lord. So all the merit is received, wealth and fame and longevity, everything in connection with Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes by saying that thus the hearers are benefited both ultimately and for as long as they are in the material world. So which means they're getting both material and spiritual advantage. That is the supreme sublime result of engaging in devotional service. The beginning of the devotional service is to spare some time and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source. Once again, that emphasis, listening from the right source. So this is the end of the pastime. And I was also reflecting that we are fortunate that we got to discuss this pastime in the association of Vaishnavas, hearing from Srila Prabhupada in the month of Kartik, today being the first day of Bhishma Panchak, more making it all the more so auspicious. So we end the chapter here also, and I'll pause here and see if there's any comments or any realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the class. Nice, wonderful. I also feel the same thing as you mentioned about Kartik month and Bhishma Panchak beginning to be with the association of devotees is really wonderful. And the last thing that I would just like to clarify, you were mentioning about hearing from a bona fide source and not to hear from Mayavadis. And then you also mentioned about the Bhagavad Saptas, the people who professional reciter of Bhagavatam. So the assumption is they are also kind of Mayavadis, or how do we understand that? Because some of them may not be Mayavadis, some of them may be Brahmavadis, or even materialistic devotees. So how do we understand this?
You're right. They, I mean, not only materialistic devotees, they could be advanced devotees, right? Because I think I shared with you that Radha Govind Swami, he does Bhagavad Saptas, and yeah, listening to his Bhagavad Sapta, it's like getting a huge dose of Krishna Bhakti. Prabhupada is not criticizing Bhagavad Saptas per se, but the dominant and the prevalent mood of these, that they're typically done by largely done by professional reciters. Their aim is to entertain people and make money, get followers. So it does, because the source is contaminated, the message gets in a very subtle way contaminated. And I think your question was how. So Prabhupada repeatedly helps us address the how, and he says the bona fide source, bona fide disciplic succession. So the person speaking should represent bona fide disciplic succession. The person should be living what he's speaking. Person should display the traits of one who's qualified to speak the Bhagavatam. And from a practical perspective, for people like you and I, the bigger shelter is the instructions of Guru Maharaj. That if you have doubts about Bhagavad Saptas, then best to get some guidance from your spiritual master, and he will guide you to the right source. Because even within ISKCON now, Bhagavad Saptas are kind of, I mean, I won't say they're like extremely prevalent, but they're coming. They're happening there. And as far as I know, they seem to be bona fide, spoken by sincere devotees, based on purpose by Srila Prabhupada. So that's the whole purpose of Bhagavad Krishna Katha. Any other thoughts, questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. That's obeisance, Prabhupada. The worship of Baladev is not so common, even within ISKCON. We worship Nrsimhadev more, and of course Krishna. And any particular reason for that?
No, Prabhu. There are temples of Varadev in the south, where he's worshipped with the Bhumi Devi. Not sure why. I mean, overall worship of Lord Varadev is not very prevalent, especially when you compare with Lord Narsingadev. Not sure about the reason.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Just wanted to thank you, Prabhuji. Wanted to thank you, Prabhuji, because these stories, as stories we heard, like even before meeting devotees, but at one point I was thinking, if those things happened some time back, how does it really matter for us? Uh, there is no link with the pastimes of the Lord with the uh, at a minimum good character of the individual. So I couldn't link that, but only when devotees and the great philosophy behind those pastimes. Even when you are telling when Hiranyaksha tried to hold the Lord and Lord was outside his arms, even that thing we saw in movies in childhood, in when Lord Krishna and something, but no philosophy or the concept behind it. So it's so wonderful hearing from devotees. So purifying. Thank you.
I agree. I think these pastimes are basically the sugar coating that enables us to swallow the relatively bitter pill of philosophy. Because too much philosophy becomes difficult for us, and these pastimes, they are an attractive form to present that philosophy. In some of his saptas, Radha Govind Maharaj, he has a sapta on the pastime of Lord Baladev also, and he goes to a whole different depth of analysis of how each action, each word, it says something, means something. What is the philosophy that is being conveyed? So then, like you're saying, that we could simply watch the pastime like a movie, and it will definitely benefit. But when we see the pastimes through the chakshu of the acharyas and the shastras, we get a sense of the greatness of the Lord, that how he's accomplishing so many things at the same time, and the greatness of his devotees also, that how they're expertly presenting so many things at the same time. Okay.
Prabhu, can I ask you one unrelated question? Is it okay?
Sure, Prabhu.
Regarding Bhishma Panchak. So what exactly is it? Bhishma Dev observing Bharat during the last days of his lying down on the bed of arrows, or is it something else?
It's the last 5 days of the life of Bhishma Dev. So he was holding his life, waiting for Krishna to come. And these 5 days he spent intensely meditating on Krishna. And then later on, of course, Krishna came with Yudhishthir, and Bhishma instructed them. We did that in the first canto, I think 10th chapter, 11th chapter. And then on the 5th day, he leaves his body. So that's what attracts the devotees, that following the footsteps of Bhishma, I'm not giving up the body, but following the footsteps of Bhishma and continuously meditating on the Lord, even though in so much of like Bhishma was lying on a bed of arrows, we are lying on this bed of material arrows, and he was troubled by so much of pain and suffering, and so are we. He was a little smarter than us, that he was aware of it. We sometimes are not aware of it, but he was aware of it. And despite all that, he completely focused his mind on Krishna, to the point that Krishna was distracted. because Krishna is in the mood of reciprocating with his devotees. Because Bhishma was thinking so intensely about Krishna, Krishna was thinking intensely about Bhishma, and Krishna was not able to think of anything else. And, therefore, he got all the Pandavas to the battlefield. So, general recommendation during Bhishma Panchak is to reduce the other activities so that we can devote more time following the footsteps of a Mahajan like Bhishma and concentrate on the Lord.
And there was a question, Prabhu, recently about the Bhishma Panchak. Bhishma, they left his body when the sun was on his course through the northern hemisphere, meaning Uttarayan. But now, right now, there is no Uttarayan. It's still sun is on the going southward. So that's why there was a confusion whether it was the last 5 days or he was observing some other day, some other time. So we couldn't answer.
Yes. So there is that. I mean, one obvious is of course that this is the lunar calendar. So this year the Bhishma Panchak is coming at the latest possible time. So the year where Adhik Mas comes, Kartik is moved to the latest point because so every lunar year we fall 11 days behind, and after 3 years and I think 3 months or 4 months, the Adhik Mas appears, and then it adds one lunar month. So a lunar month is 29.5 days. So then it pushes everything that comes after it. And then after that, it starts slipping back also. Now, the earliest that it could come is 30 days prior to where it is appearing now, which again is not Uttarayan. So this is something that at least I don't have a clear answer to. That even if it was at the beginning of the month, it would still not be Uttarayan. So some people say that Bhishma Panchak maybe was not at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. So even if the Kartik came at the earliest possible time, and even if it was at the beginning of the month, it would not be Uttarayan. I have heard some possible explanations, but none that none that I have enough faith to repeat as authoritative.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a few minutes. I don't want. So the next chapter is a bit of a departure from this chapter. Last 2 chapters were pastimes. The next chapter is our favorite topic of creation. So it goes into a more philosophical realm, and we'll do that next week. So we have a few times. If anybody has any questions related to this particular pastime or general, we can discuss that. If not, we can end a little early, whatever the devotees want.
Prabhuji, this time if I'm trying to do like 5 days with no grains like that, Prabhuji, in that case, like because generally after Ekadasi we need to break the fast at the Parana time. So so still how we can break, Prabhuji, like
So there are 2 ways that are recommended. One is that if you follow Ekadashi Nirahar, so you if you do Ekadashi Nirjal, then you can break it with Jal, right? So that's one way, that you follow the Ekadashi Nirjal, and then you can break it and still not break your Bhishma Panchak vow. The second way, which is what I would recommend as more practical, which is what I do also, is to take a few grains and consider it to be a part of your Ekadashi Vrata, which should not impinge on your Bhishma Panchak Vrata. So it's not that you prepare a big bowl of rice and eat it, but take 2 or 3 grains, or generally it is said something that fits in the palm of your hand, and consider that to be the breaking of your fast.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, they can take the Jagannath rice little bit
Yeah.
if you have.
Yeah, I heard that, Prabhu. Like,
And then continue with fruits.
Yeah, then just continue. And then break it on Sunday evening. Sunday at moonrise. That's when the Bhishma Panchak officially is over. So just like starting is important, ending is also important. So the time to break it would be at moonrise time on Sunday.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we'll end here. Thank you so much. Thank you for your association. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhya eva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nithai Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.